There's a lot of concern about climate change. There's a lot of concern about carbon emissions. It's a very complicated debate, and there are people that are passionate on both sides. But government policy is driving a lot of our cost. So when you hear about the EPA passing regulations that reduce the amount of carbon that's allowed from smokestacks that are generating power, everyone needs to understand that there's a big cost associated with that.
If the EPA and the current administration is that's their philosophy, to give it the EPA the marching orders to capture all carbon, basically not emit any carbon, and coal, will be shut down. If that's the direction the country wants to go, when electric rates double, then our members need to understand why.
One of the things we have to understand in our country right now is that we are in a huge energy conversation, and the biggest part of that conversation is how we produce our power. And so when I talk about mix, I'm talking about the backbone system of Alabama. Not necessarily some of the fringe things, but the four cores, what I call them now. And that's basically coal, hydro, nuclear, and then we also have some gas production. And that's the big conversation right now, is whether we're moving into the gas more than what we are and reducing some of our coal consumption. So that's a big conversation, not only in the state of Alabama, not only for the local co-op customers, but also for our nation. And so when we start talking about that, one of the things as a regulator I have to look at is I have to look at that cheap production side. What is going to cost that consumer the less amount of money when it gets to that house? And so when we do that, we have to look at that backbone mix. Now we can throw other things within that mix, and that's the expanse of it. You can throw solar, you can throw wind, you can throw other alternative powers, paper, pulp production, whatever alternative you may need to get into that. But you still have to have that backbone production rolling over the line, so that when that customer or consumer goes to that light switch and flips it on, we want Wiregrass Electric to actually be able to have that power on that line. And that is a key factor for me looking at the energy mix.
To have an affordable, reliable flow of electricity, there has to be a generation mix of all of it, we think. And certainly coal has to be a part of that generation mix.
To say that coal is fully out of the picture, I'm not one of those people. I'm saying let's look at what we can on that cheap level and see what we can to do for the emission. And it may be the process in which we use coal.
And just for the record, I mean, we certainly want everyone to understand that Wiregrass Electric Cooperative and Power South Energy Cooperative, we pride ourselves on being good stewards of the environment. We work hard at it, and we've invested a lot of dollars. Power South, a significant amount of dollars to be compliant, because we don't want dirty air. We don't want to pollute the environment. We live here. Why would we want to do that to our own backyard?
Hundreds of millions of dollars have been spent by our G&T in the last few years at our generating plants. And if the government, if our elected officials continue to believe that they have to do that, then our costs are going to go up in the next decade.
You're talking about a regulation that in some business communities are saying a 40% increase in your bills. So we've seen some of those studies in which that's going to happen. If these EPA regulations hold, you're going to definitely see an increase in that production side, in which will be automatically transferred to the consumer. A lot of people don't understand that that part of energy production goes directly to the consumer.
We would like to see a smart approach to this. We certainly believe that investing in research for new technologies like wind and solar, and where they make sense, and if they can get them more affordable and they can get the production rates, great, go do that research and go. But the wind doesn't blow all the time and the sun doesn't shine all the time, so when those things don't occur, there has to be a backup. And if there's not a backup, then when one turns on the light, it doesn't come on because there's no generation there. And wind and solar can't replace today, cannot replace the reliability of coal. Coal is a reliable, inexpensive, clean source of power that we as a country need to consider and continue to use.
So what we're going to be seeing is the EPA effect, and so that's what we're pretty well calling it, is this regulatory authority when it comes in and starts messing with the production, we're having to close coal plants, put in gasification plants or gas plants. These things cost money, and they will be passed on. That's a rate increase that has to go into the consumer's pocket. So when you say that the rates are going to increase, the rates are going to increase if the EPA regulation holds.
Obviously, those that can afford it the least is who is going to hurt the most. So we would like, if our members agree that we should have a smart approach to this, and that the current administration's policies and the EPA and their goal to shut down coal, if our members agree that that might not be the right thing to do right now, at least let's stop and have a common sense approach about everything. If you shut down 50–60% of this nation's generation source, which is what coal is, how are you going to replace that? And at what cost? If our members agree with us, we're encouraging them to go to a little website called action.coop, and they can fill out the form there. It goes straight to their congressperson, and let them know how you feel. And we want people to be engaged and let them know, because their voice will make a difference.
What we pledge to do is to do our best to control those costs. We control everything that we can. We make sure that our employees are there to keep the lights on. We make sure that we're employing technology effectively so that we control our cost. But the things that we can't control, like EPA regulations, we're very dependent on our members to let our elected representatives and the EPA itself understand that when they pass regulations that cost a lot of money, that it's the consumer, that it's our members that are going to pay that cost. So there's got to be a balance, between taking care of things like climate change and carbon emissions and what the average person can afford to pay every month on their power bill.